Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Satyabhama Mataji, can you do 5 minutes kirtan? Prabhu should be joining in a minute. Hare Krishna, Mataji are there. Prabhuji, Satyabhama Mataji, or anyone else can do. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram.
I'll post it. Okay, yes.
Good. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Satyabhama Mataji, can you go ahead?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Kirtan for a few minutes.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam.
Mataji, Hare Krishna is there. Prabhu is there. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No problem.
Having some problems. Not unusual. So let's begin with Mangalacharana as always.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madhgavira Bigopala Sri Puryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampaya Pitva Hrishyayustat Priyajanaha. Today we have been asked to discuss the topic of Gopashtami, which recently occurred just after Diwali. Gopashtami is not one of the pastimes that we hear much about in Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, I'm not aware of anywhere that Srila Prabhupada has mentioned Gopashtami at all, at least not by name. It's one of Krishna's eternal pastimes, and we'll say a few words about it. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in various places, we find in the 10th canto that Srila Prabhupada has described Krishna's pastimes beginning with his Pauganda Lila. Rupa Goswami describes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Krishna has his pastimes in 3 ages. His Kaumara Lila, which is from age 1 to 5, and then we have Pauganda Lila, which is from 5 to 10, and then Kaishora Lila, which is after 10. So when Krishna comes to the Pauganda age, at that point, he's given a little bit more responsibility. Up until the Pauganda pastimes begin, Krishna and Balaram have been allowed to care for the calves. For the calves of Nanda Maharaj, because they're just children, 5 years old. And they can handle calves, but they can't handle cows unless they have Punganur cows, miniature cows. But we don't hear about that. So Krishna and Balaram on Gopashtami, that is the celebration in which Krishna and Balaram are in effect initiated as cowherds, full-fledged cowherds. They've graduated from childhood pastimes. Now they're becoming young children and they're allowed to care for the cows for the first time. This is a grand achievement and a great cause of celebration in Brajatam and for Krishna personally. He enjoys this pastime because just like in this material world, children, they always like to think that they're older and more mature than they are. And Krishna and Balaram, they are no exception because their pastimes are meant to display this human-like quality in order to attract the minds of human beings. Krishna in his eternal constitutional position, we ourselves in our eternal constitutional position, for that matter. We're eternal servants of Krishna, and Krishna has his eternal pastimes. And caring for the cows is one of them. It's described in the Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhirapi palayantam. Krishna is caring for hundreds and thousands of cows in the spiritual world. Even in this material world, when Krishna came to perform his Bhoma Lila, Prakata Lila, in this world, his father Nanda Maharaj had 9 lakhs of cows. 9 lakhs of cows. Now, in the last week here in Vrindavan, it seems as if we've had 9 lakhs of devotees. It's extremely crowded here. I just yesterday went to Govardhan, and now I've come back to Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, I don't know how many thousands of devotees were celebrating Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day anniversary, but it was very, very difficult to get in or out of the temple, and it was virtually impossible to find anyone. So thick are the crowds. So I thought I would escape when I went to Govardhan, but at Govardhan also, there were 4,000 devotees, and they offered a feast to Srila Prabhupada there, and that feast alone consisted of at least over 2,000 different items in the feast, that many things. So Krishna has unlimited devotees, but his cows are particularly dear to him. And Krishna loves the cows. That's why he's called Govinda. That's why he's called Gopala. That's, for that matter, that's why his own planet, his Vaikuntha, not Vaikuntha, but the original spiritual world, it's not so much called Krishna Loka as it's called Goloka, cow world, because Krishna privileges his devotees, and the cows are so much dear to Krishna. We'll speak more about this. There are many things that we can say about this, but Gopa Ashtami, the 8th day of the cowherd. Who is that cowherd? It's of course Krishna, but also Balaram. Gopa, pa means to protect, and therefore Gopa means the protector of the cows. Cow protection is a very serious topic, very important contribution to humankind by the Vaishya class. And so this is the day that commemorates when Krishna and Balaram exhibited their pastimes as ideal cowherds when they first became cowherd boys. The poet, Braj poet Surdas, he has written one song. He says, Do bhaiya maiya pe mangata de makhan roti. 2 brothers, they're coming to Mother Yashoda and they're begging, Mata, please give us makhan roti. Why are they praying for makhan roti? Everybody knows that Krishna actually prefers milk sweets, and especially he's famous for stealing butter, Navanita Taskara or Makhana Chora. But this is the child psychology, and this is the great intelligence of Krishna, that he displays this childhood pastime just to entrance our minds. Children like to present themselves as being older and more important than they actually are. That's why, even though Balaram and Krishna are just children tugging at their mother's sari, but actually they're not asking for milk sweets, they're asking for makhan roti, because they want to eat grown-up food. If they can eat makhan roti instead of baby food, then they feel like they're more important, and they're more mature, and they're almost like adults. So this is a great occasion for celebration, and it's very beloved of Krishna as well, that he's able to graduate from just being a baby to being a full-fledged cowherd boy. And he exhibits this blissful pastime forever, both in the spiritual realm and even in his pastimes here in this material world. Actually, many devotees, they have recognized in various places in our Smriti Shastras that the pastimes in the material world are actually more attractive than the pastimes in the spiritual world. We're all planning for liberation, and we're all hoping that we go back to Godhead, which means we go back to Krishna's own planet, Goloka, or Krishna Loka. But actually, these most relishable pastimes are happening here in Bhoma Lila. Bhoma Lila means in the earthly plane, that Lila that is exhibited when Krishna comes to this planet, just to attract all of us. His childhood pastimes, they only are happening here in the Bhoma Prakat Lila. And his killing of demons is another thing that only happens here in Bhoma Lila. Therefore, the earthly pastimes on this side of the Viraja River, they're actually more attractive in many ways than even his eternal pastimes. But this particular pastime, it happens everywhere. So the medieval poet named Bilva Mangal Thakur, he wrote in Sanskrit various works glorifying Krishna. One of his famous stotras is called Govinda Damodara Stotra. And in that composition, one of his verses reads as follows. Prabhata kale varavallavaokha gorakshanartham dhritavetra dandaha akarayam asuranantamadya Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. That means that at daybreak, throngs of Krishna's super excellent cowherd friends have arrived at the house of Mother Yashoda. And they're all holding their canes in their hands. And those canes are meant for protecting the cows. And they all address the unlimited, supreme, primeval personality of Godhead Krishna. How? Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. By these names, Govinda, Damodar, Madhava, and other names as well, Ananta, Adya, etc., etc. So this is in the early morning at dawn. And Krishna has been awakened and he's been readied for the day by Mother Yashoda. That's in itself not so easy thing to do because Krishna doesn't get up so early in Vrindavan. No one really understands why. Maybe some understand why, but certainly Mother Yashoda doesn't understand why. She looks at all the scratches on Krishna's body and she thinks that this boy he's been working so hard out in the pastures with the cows and he's been scratched by thorns and he's so tired, let him sleep a little bit later. So she doesn't make such an effort to wake him up. But anyway, once he does wake up, he finds that all of his friends are already there. They're already waiting at the door, and they're so eager to go out with him that they're calling his names like this. And he's ready for his next pastime. What is his next pastime? That's described elsewhere in another work by the same author, Bilva Mangal. He says, Patheya pani parigrahya Krishna savenum unnadhamadabhiramaha vimucyatam gauriti sambramena gachan prati dwaram avocharuchaihi. He takes his tiffin in hand, his packed lunch, and along with his flute, and he arrives at each and every door in Vrindavan, and in a loud voice, he comes and he says, let the cows out. And everybody lets their cows out and Krishna proceeds on his pastime for the day, his Gocharan pastime, Gocharan Lila. So according to the Shruti mantras, the Upanishads, the Vedas, I'm thinking particularly of Shvetashvatara Upanishad, the great white horse Upanishad, Shvetashvatara. And it says, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. The supreme absolute truth actually has no responsibility. Karyam. This is where we get the modern Hindi word kaj. Everybody has to go to work. But Krishna doesn't have to go to work. So how does he busy himself if he has nothing to do? Anything he wishes is automatically manifest simply by his desire. Satya kama, satya sankalpa. If he desires it, it becomes an instant fact. So he doesn't require to do anything at all. All of his potencies are taking care of everything. Parasya shaktir vividhaya vashriyate, the same Upanishad tells us. So therefore, Krishna is free. And how does he spend his time? This is what we've already heard from Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakara satmasu kalpavriksha lakshavriteshu surabhir abhipalayantam. His only program is to take care of cows. He devotes his free time to the devotees, his cowherd boyfriends, the cows themselves, and of course the gopis and the elders. So this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 13, text number 14. Even in Goloka, the transcendental engagement of Krishna and his friends is protecting the cows of Nanda Maharaj. And the term is used here in this verse, Gorakshana. Gorakshanartham dhrita vetra dandaha. They're coming with their sticks in hands, and those sticks are meant for Gorakshana. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 8, text 16, Srila Prabhupada comments there that in Vrajatam, Krishna's first business is to provide all comforts to the Brahmanas and the cows, two classes of devotees. First of all, the Brahmanas, then the cows. Actually, it's not first of all the Brahmanas. First of all, it is the cows and then the Brahmanas. So comfort for the Brahmanas, Prabhupada writes there, is secondary, and comfort for the cows is his first concern. So Mother Yashoda's first concern, of course, is her son. And therefore, she always warns or instructs Balaram that you please have to take care of your younger brother. You know he's very mischievous, and sometimes he wanders off and does things that are off task. So you have to make sure that he stays safe, because I keep finding these scratch marks on his body when I wake him up in the morning. So you're not paying sufficient attention. And Mother Yashoda is telling Krishna himself that please, you wear these shoes when you go out in the pasturing ground, because there are these sharp rocks and there are, thorns on the ground, and anything sharp you can come across in Vrindavan. And so she's giving this instruction. Krishna, on the other hand, he doesn't like to take shoes. Why? He tells his mother, look, all these cows, they don't have shoes. I won't wear any shoes either. Therefore, unless you give all my cows shoes, then I will wear shoes. But if you don't give all these cows shoes, then I'm not wearing shoes either. This is Krishna's attitude towards the cows. So Gorakshana. Krishna's eternally liberated devotees actively assist him. Krishna's eternally liberated devotees assist him in his pastime. And we've already described what that pastime is. That pastime is Gorakshana. If you want to join Krishna's pastimes, particularly if you want to join Krishna's pastimes as a cowherd boy in the Sakhya-rasa, or to take part in these Palganda Leelas that happen every day in Krishna's Leelas, then you have to protect cows. Actually, there's no such thing as Krishna consciousness without cows. Cows are absolutely essential, not only to the proper maintenance and dharma of human society, but certainly for the perfection of Krishna consciousness. It's unimaginable without cow protection. Cows are so important. So Krishna and his devotees, namely the cows, they're engaged in these pastimes, and Krishna even engages his other devotees in serving these cows. In other words, that's us. If we want to become devotees, if we want to go back to Godhead, then Krishna is very mercifully giving us the opportunity also to do something for the cows. Some of you may have heard the name Velukuri Krishnan, famous Tamil Kathakar. We stayed in his ashram once, and that ashram was registered in the name Kinchit Karam Trust. Do something, trust. Kinchit Karam. So I like that. Sanskrit, fancy Sanskrit way of saying do something. Similarly, if we want to join Krishna's eternal pastimes, especially if we're interested in Sakya Rasa, and we want to participate in a way that pleases Krishna, we should understand that Krishna's trying to engage us. And he's trying to engage us by giving us the facility to protect cows. Even in this world, we can do that because there are facsimile cows in this world. Actually, everything in this world is a facsimile of what's going on in the spiritual world. But cows are very, very important for human society. Without cows, there's no milk. And without milk, there's no grain. And because there's no grain, take a look at the world and see what the situation is. Sometimes people have this propaganda against milk. There's so much nonsense things people say about milk, but actually Srila Prabhupada, especially if you carefully study his first canto purports, you will find time and again Srila Prabhupada is glorifying the spiritual, religious, and even physical and health properties of milk. It is Prabhupada said, is the miracle food for babies and old men if you drink milk. But people don't know how to drink milk. People say milk is causing mucus or milk is causing cholesterol. You have to drink milk from cows that are healthy, first of all. That means A2 cows. And then secondly, you have to drink milk in the proper way. If you begin your day with a glass of cold milk, then of course you're going to have mucus. It doesn't work that way. That's not the proper way to eat. But if you drink milk at night, means when there's no sun around and you're standing up and the milk is very hot and it's from an A2 cow, then you'll be fine. So milk is an important part of human society, and milk is practically the only foodstuff available for human consumption, which is very quickly processed. Normally, anything you eat, according to Ayurveda, it takes about a month for it to be filtered through all the systems of the body and then distributed to every fiber, and ultimately it becomes merged into the bone marrow, which is where the real strength is. It takes about a month at least, but with milk, the whole process can happen in 24 hours. It is such a, like Prabhupada said, it's a miracle food. Miracle food. Therefore, yogis who know these things, they can subsist very nicely drinking only milk. And you cannot have that milk if you do not protect cows. This is the great ignorance of modern civilization. People have no idea what to do about cows. They think that cows are meant for eating, even though it takes so much more grain to feed a cow than it does if you were to live directly from the grain itself. It's tremendous waste of energy. And it's not really healthy for a human being. It's certainly a sinful activity, an extremely sinful activity to eat cows. So many things we can say about this. But this is all by way of explaining why it is that Krishna himself is demonstrating for us how to take care of cows, and Krishna is also willing to engage us in his Nitya Leelas, his eternal pastimes, if only we are to become enthusiastic and positively engaged, happily engaged in protecting cows. So their transcendental engagement, Krishna and Balaram's transcendental engagement, it sets a necessary example of Sanatana Dharma for those of us who are still struggling in the material world with our conditional consciousness. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, Chapter 5, Text 20, Srila Prabhupada further describes Balaram represents plowing the land. In other words, that's agriculture. And therefore, he always carries in his hands a plow. And whereas Krishna is tending the cows, and therefore he is always carrying his flute in hand. Together, these two brothers represent Krishi Raksha and Go Raksha. We know this from Bhagavad Gita when Krishna is describing the duties of the Vaishyas in particular. Krishni Go Rakshavanajam Vaishya Karma Swabhavacham. There are many more Vaishyas in society than there are Kshatriyas. And there are many more Kshatriyas in society than there are Brahmanas. And there are many more Shudras even than Vaishyas. But Krishna and Balaram, they incarnated and they played the part as ideal Vaishyas during their manifest pastimes in this world. And they set this example. The means and of human prosperity is Visha. Visha means agriculture and the business of distributing agricultural products. That includes dairy products. And people who are so engaged, they're called Vaishyas. Visha Karma, therefore Vaishya. Bhagavad Gita 1844 lists the Vaishya's duties as agriculture, cow protection, and business. And it's in order of importance, actually. Business is last thing. Nowadays, we've made business all important to the extent that just to make some profit, we're harming the land. We don't mind destroying all the rainforests that we ourselves depend on. And we're eating cows. What to speak of protecting cows, we're eating them. All so many misguided ideas in human society. But actually the means of prosperity is cows. Agriculture, cows, and then some business if there's any surplus. In the third canto, chapter 6, text 32, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, industry is an artificial means of livelihood, and large-scale industry especially is the source of all the problems of society, end quote. That's a very strong statement. But the purport here is that simple agriculture, that means self-sufficiency farming, and service to the cows, not just raising cattle, but to serve cows. This is the basis of a truly human civilization. We cannot call ourselves truly human unless we're engaged in the things that define true humans. And the thing that the primary characteristic of a true human being, genuine human being, is not just the capacity for biological reproduction with another human being. Instead, it is adherence to the laws of dharma. And among those laws of dharma, protection of the cow is a very, very prominent item. So we can take note of this. Srila Prabhupada considered agrarian economy and cow protection to be the essential basis, at least it's the economic basis of the Varnashram social system. And he called that the remaining 50% of his mission. He gave roughly 80% of all his instructions on the topic of Varnashram within the last 3 years that he was with us. And he directly and explicitly asked his initiated disciples and followers to implement those instructions. And he strongly urged agrarian economics combined with cow protection, as was reported in one conversation that was in New Vrindavan on May 27th, 1977, which I'll quote. He says, how they were happy, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, with Krishna and living with cows. That I want to introduce at any cost. Do it. And don't bother about big buildings. It is not required. Useless waste of time. Produce Make the whole field green. See that? Then whole economic question solved. Then you eat sumptuous, eat sumptuously. The animal is happy. The animal does not give milk. Let them eat and pass stool and urine. That is welcome. After all, eating, they will pass stool. So that is beneficial. Not that simply milk is beneficial. Even the stool is beneficial. Therefore, I'm asking so much here. And farm, 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 farm. 4 times he says it here. End quote. That is not, actually he goes on. That is not my program. That is Krishna's program. Annad bhavanti bhutani. That's from Bhagavad Gita 3, chapter 3, text 14. Produce greenness everywhere, everywhere. Vrindavan. It is not this motor car civilization. End quote. A couple of days ago, we heard a very nice Bhagavatam lecture at the ISKCON Goshala in Vrindavan, given by His Holiness Kadam Kanan Swami, whom we don't know how much more he will be in this world, but we were fortunate to hear his comments on this topic. And he was remarking that just imagine if all the cars honking that you hear and all the traffic that you are clogged up on the freeway with, just imagine if they were all cows. Imagine if all these concrete roads were footpaths made out of Chintamani dust, as it used to be in Vrindavan. And instead of skyscraper buildings, we have kalpa vrikshas surrounding our house. That is what is described in our scriptures. For the 3rd time in this evening, I will repeat Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakara sadma. Sadma means house. What kind of house? Prakara means what kind? Chintamani prakara. It's a house made out of Chintamani gems. So all the dust, all the dirt, and therefore all the bricks in Vrindavan, they're made out of Chintamani. And all the trees are called Vriksha trees, which fulfill all your desires. And they're surrounded by cows, who also fulfill all of our desires. So whether it's dust, trees, or cows, everything in Vrindavan has the potency to fulfill any purpose you wish. This is Krishna's world. And this material world can be turned into the spiritual world in the sense that we engage it all in Krishna's service, live naturally, live simply, and think very high, both in terms of ethics and in terms of philosophy and religion. That is a real human life. That is a life worth living. And characteristically, Srila Prabhupada tangibly demonstrated his commitment to this ideal by personally prioritizing it within ISKCON. I think it was 1976, certainly by 1977, despite failing health, Srila Prabhupada made it a priority to come to America and visit Gita Nagari farm project. And his purpose was to encourage the nascent developments of what he had ordered for us in terms of Varnashram Dharma. So, unfortunately, the time factor was there, or Krishna's plan was there, then Prabhupada was taken away from us before he could make it. But that was his plan, I remember, in late 1970, early 1977. So those of us who are under the insidious influence of modern society, we have to recognize the socioeconomic deficiency that this entails and that it perpetuates also. And even more important than that, we have to recognize the spiritual stagnation or downright dishonesty that is at its core. It is a dishonest, spiritually stagnant, and socioeconomically ineffective way to live. The way that we live. Modern lifestyle is essentially carcinogenic. That's why, I mean, here in India, 50 years ago, nobody knew what is cancer. Now, everyone you ask practically knows at least one person who has had cancer if they haven't had it themselves. Why? Because Indians have adopted a carcinogenic culture and a carcinogenic civilization, pseudo-civilization, which they've taken to be something advanced, just because their slave drivers have told them that it is advanced. But human beings are actually intelligent enough to live simply as directed by the Shastras, and Krishna does suggest in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 28, that by upholding dharma only, one can sustain mature Krishna consciousness with minimal obstructions. The godless, artificial, materialistic monoculture that is now coming to dominate global economic and political affairs may appear to be unprecedentedly powerful. But the driving ambition to dominate nature, and to the extent of, well, to what extent do we try to dominate nature? We want to genetically modify plants and even species. We want to encourage diseases of various sorts so that we can develop medicines that we profit from distributing in order to cure those diseases. And we nourish transnational corporate subsidization of world governments in order to exploit local populations. And we even threaten to use nuclear weapons if anybody gets in our way. So, using all the technologies of their era, both Ravana and Hiranyakashipu were two examples, and other demons also. They tried, but they failed to do this. Kyon? Moha sha, moha karmano, moha jnana vichetasaha. Because it doesn't work. When you embrace demoniac ideals or ideologies, and you're infected by that mindset and psychology, and you try to live in such a way that conforms to that set of values instead of Krishna's values, then you are doomed to fail. There's actually a verse like this in this Srimad Bhagavatam. Whenever the Vedas and the Devas and the Brahmanas and the cows and the Vaishnavas are mistreated, that entire civilization will quickly perish. It is a fact. You don't have to believe me. You can wait and watch if you like, but I don't recommend that. So we do all these things, but this endeavor is nothing really new. This is my point. That all the demons that we read about in our Shastras, they've tried doing the same things that we're trying in the present day. Just because they didn't have rubber, plastic, and metal cars to speed around in at breakneck speeds, it doesn't mean that they didn't have similar ambitions or that they didn't attain similarly sophisticated technology. We read in the Shastras about highly sophisticated means of fulfilling your material desires, which the demons also possessed. In general, Prabhupada has written elsewhere, demons are of the nature that they gravitate towards these things in order to fulfill their desires. They're always technologically advanced. They always appear to have the upper hand in this world. But the important point I'm making here is that they always fail. The English poet Shelley, he wrote a famous poem called Ozymandias. You can look it up. He's describing a vast expanse of desert somewhere in the sands of Egypt. And there's a great statue there in the middle of the desert, Sphinx. And this statue is as if declaring to the world, look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. But that is just a statue, a decaying statue in the middle of the desert. A whole empire, a whole civilization just sitting in the dust with wind blowing it into eroded obscurity. So everything is happening like this in this world. And even though a highly vocal minority currently tries to erase traditional cultures and especially religious values worldwide in order to abuse whatever resources and people remain in today's world, how do they do that? Chiefly through rampant commercialism and all of its accessory media, social media and otherwise. Anyone psychologically colonized by this insidious influence should recognize that there's a massive socioeconomic deficiency involved. And being complicit in this mess by silent participation, what do we become? We become the transcendentally accredited agents of a truly global misfortune. So Lord Krishna, instead, he wants that all human beings protect his cows. And in Bhagavatam 11th canto, he personally instructed Uddhava to worship him within the cows. 11th canto, 11th chapter, text 43. You can look it up. He told her that you worship me within cows. How do you do that? At least you offer them fresh grass to eat. And Srila Prabhupada also writes that Krishna is always kind to the Brahmanas and the cows. And, quote, therefore one who worships Govinda must satisfy him by worshiping the Brahmanas and the cows. If a government worships the Brahmanas, the cows, and Krishna, Govinda, then it is never defeated anywhere. Otherwise, it must always be defeated and condemned everywhere. We've already said this, but this is 6th canto, chapter 7, text 24. So indirectly, the term Godakshanartan here also suggests another understanding central to these ideals. That is that by his personal experience, Bilvamangala Thakur knew very well how troublesome the material senses can be. If you know the story of Bilvamangala Thakur, you can guess what I'm talking about. He understood that the senses can be difficult. Why? Because our senses are like cows. Why do we call the senses go? What happens? If you're a Tamilian, you'll understand what I'm about to say. What happens when you, on Dwadashi day, if you hold a little bit of agati kirei in front of a cow? There's no force on earth that can stop her from eating it. This is what it means to be a cow. Once I was in Nathdwara with a godbrother, and we had purchased a big basket of Mahaprasadam, Srinathji, from one of the pujaris there. We sat down in one chowk. There were some tables and chairs, and we were just about to honor this prasadam. And then suddenly our whole table just exploded and there's prasadam everywhere. And we didn't even know what was going on until we got up and saw that this cow had just pushed right in and just quaffed everything within a few seconds. We were not attentive enough. So cows cannot be controlled in terms of eating. It's very difficult. I mean, if you want to get a cow to go into her shed, all you have to do is lure her with chapatis or gur, and she will come, no problem. I did it about an hour ago. So our senses are called cows, and Bilvamangala Thakur knew that they're like unintelligent animals. They have to be guarded, they have to be guided, they have to be controlled. So therefore he says, Swagochare charya kimmadiyam upekshase gam abhase vrajantim yad gopanatha kriyate kadachit nacheta sapi tvaye vrittibhangaha. What does it mean? Please, my dear Lord, you heard my go into your pasture also. You get the pun? He says, can you not take mine into your own go, cow pasture? Certainly you see my cows are wandering off the path. since you're the god of cowherds, Gopanatha, who can imagine any neglect of duty in you? So, you certainly should take note that my cows are wandering all over the place and help. A beautiful prayer, he says. In other words, Gopal is the real protector of the senses. That's why another name he has is Hrishikesha, Lord of the senses. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our body is an entangling net of powerful senses that can almost force us or generally ensure death in mundane consciousness. They force us to commit sinful activity and die in mundane consciousness of attachment to their senses and their demands. But for the sake of the jivas who are trapped in this network of senses, Krishna very kindly comes into this world and he expands his transcendental pastimes and he attracts us back to Godhead. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore presents himself as if he were a fallen conditioned soul like ourselves. And he sings, Gopinath anatha dekhiya more, tumi hrishikesha hrishika damiya, taro he sanskriti bhore. Means, my dear Lord, you are Hrishikesh, the Lord of the senses. Seeing me without a master, please control my senses and deliver me from this horrible worldly existence. Only Krishna can control our senses. Actually, we don't have that power. Once an experienced person realizes this, then he surrenders his senses for Krishna's enjoyment. Hrishikena, Hrishikesha Sevana, Bhakti Ruchate. That humble submission automatically brings our senses under control. And it diverts so many needless difficulties. So therefore, I'll end with another prayer from one of my favorite authors, Bilvamangal Thakur. He says, Hey Krishna, Krishna, Krita Vrishni Kulavatar, Samsara Varana Vidarana Singha Vishnu, Gopi Gano Pahritalochana Padmamala, Gopala Palaya Kripalaya Mama Nishtat, Gopala Palaya Kripalaya Mam Anishtat. My dear Lord Krishna, you have descended in the Vrishni house, and you're like a lion who can kill the elephant of material existence. My dear Lord Krishna, you're garlanded by the lotus flower-like eyes of the gopis. It means they're all watching you all the time. My dear Lord Gopal, storehouse of mercy, please protect me from evil. These are a few thoughts that I thought to share tonight about Krishna's Gopashtami, because Srila Prabhupada has not really, I want to say, given us this pastime. I didn't really want to get into describing the pastime so much, but there is information about it. But I think that the principles are more important because we find that the things that I've discussed tonight are the things that Srila Prabhupada discusses all over his entire corpus of writing. These are the really essential things for us to assimilate at entry level Krishna consciousness. We have to recognize the value of Krishna's Vedic social system and the role that protecting cows plays within that system. And we have to recognize also that the cows play, even in terms of mundane socioeconomic and agrarian ideals, the cows are indispensable for a human society. A truly human society is one that recognizes this dharma, Sanatana Dharma culture. And Krishna himself comes again and again to reestablish it whenever we get off task or off the path, like cows that are hungry and going for things that are needless but attractive. So Gopashtami is a very instructive Leela for us, even at our level of spiritual advancement. And when we appreciate the value of protecting cows in terms of our spiritual advancement, how it's absolutely essential to get into cow consciousness in order to really cultivate a consciousness or a psychology more in harmony with that of the spiritual world, then we can actually get somewhere with cow protection, even on this side of the Virja River. So I'm going to repeat this beautiful verse that we've been discussing. Prabhata kale varavallavo kha gorakshanartham tritavetra dandaha akarayama suranantamadya govinda damodara madhaveti. At daybreak, throngs of Krishna's super excellent cowherd boyfriends arrived, holding their cane staffs in hand to protect the cows. And they addressed that unlimited primeval personality of Godhead as Govinda, Damodar, and Madhava. So this is my Katha on Gopashtami. I'm going to stop here, but if anybody has any questions or any comments, we can discuss it further.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Amazing instructions, real values for the cow protection. And brought up a wonderful point of Gitanagari also. So we are getting the cow milk from Gitanagari for last few years and vegetables from Gitanagari. So thank you so much for pointing out.
Speaking of cow's milk, the verse I recited at the beginning of class also is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It's in his Bhagavatam commentary. He says, Madgavir Ravi Gopala Svikurya Kripayayadi. My dear Lord Gopal, if you kindly accept even my words as cows, then Tadaivasan Tayaha Pitva Krishyayus Tat Priyajnaha. Then only can the milk of my words give pleasure to your pure devotees. This is another meditation we can think about today. Today is the day of cows. And it says enough to know that Krishna himself is engaged as a cowherd eternally, just to show us how important cows are.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dear devotees, anyone has questions? Looks like no questions. All well, Prabhu.
Okay.
Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mancha Kulpatarabhasya Kupasandubhya Pathanam Pavanebhyo Krishnabhyo Namo Namo Vishnandati Jai.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
can I ask one question?
Oh,
I didn't
please.
raise my hand actually.
Go ahead, Jagdish and Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanwa Prabhu, all glories to Prabhupada and all glories to you. Prabhu, just I'm trying to understand that you bring the point to the cow protection. And I remembering like in the villages in the Mathura, not now. If I go the 30 years back, every house having the cow, and the first roti which make that goes to cow, and the bull also helping to the farming like that before the tractor came. So that was the naturally cow protection was there by the system itself in the living day-to-day activities. But now the
Yes.
machinery replaces the bull and all, and we talk about that. They say what the use, because the cows are not and the bull are not there. How to do this, the managing cow. Before, like a cow was the proud to live in the house owner feel the proud, but now cow move the cow house, they like what with the gosala, and everybody putting the cows in gosala. How to go that direction, the nature should like by the nature or by the day-to-day activity, bring that back the situation. So the cow protection happened by automatically, not that there's so much effort.
Very excellent question. Super excellent question. There's so many things I can say about it that it would take up a whole nother lecture, but I will answer quickly. The short answer is that the people who will put cows, their previously household cows, into the Goshala are the same people who will put their parents into a Goshala. The cows have to be protected. And the only way to encourage cow protection is to set the example and do it. As I was walking home tonight from Govardhan, it was very difficult to get home because of the traffic jams. Traffic, motor traffic. All the way out at NRI Greens, I had to get down from the van and I had to carry my suitcase all the way to the ISKCON complex through honking traffic, belching smoke, noise, the headlights, all this stuff. Okay, that's, I guess you can say, tolerable, even though it wasn't there 30 or 40 years ago. And these are the auto rickshaws that make this headache producing boom, 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 boom noise. They call it music. But then when I came within a block of MBT, I saw a huge pit, maybe 40 or 50 feet deep, and at least as many feet wide, more like 100 feet wide. Absolutely massive. What does that mean? That means there's some skyscraper going up right across the street from Krishna Balaram Temple. That's all it can mean, as far as I'm aware. I don't think they're building a new kunda of any sort. I guess you can comfort yourself in the fact that it's going to be a Chintamani skyscraper. You might even title it that as well. But it's not simple living and high thinking. It's not the Vrindavan that was here 30 years ago. And the only way that that's going to come back is if we go back. And that means we have to make some very serious changes to our own lifestyle. There's no easy way to say this, my friend. As they say, there's no polite way to throw a hand grenade. It's uncomfortable. It's austerity for us, because once you get attached to prayas, it's very difficult to go back to Shreyas. But this is what Prabhupada asked us to do. And so a person who has a concept of duty as a disciple or a follower, the sattvic gain or loss, whether I like it or not, I need to say. So that consciousness has to be there. And if enough people are prepared to live simply and in accordance with the means that the agrarian ideals that Srila Prabhupada encouraged, then it will happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It will keep getting worse. And I'm also guilty of it. I can't point fingers at anyone. But it's not a comfortable process. It's an austerity. But it's one that has to happen. Otherwise, our humanity will continue to erode. And Krishna comes again and again and again just to stop this from happening. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shrijamyam. So we have our ideals, and our ideals are only as strong as our willingness to undergo difficulty in order to uphold them. Prabhupada ordered us to implement Varnashram and ISKCON. How we do that, we have to decide. And you can strategize, and you can even take maybe a long time, Srila Prabhupada took a long time to execute the order of his spiritual master, but he never stopped thinking about it. And eventually he was successful. That's how it will happen. Otherwise, I can't see that it will happen. I hope that's a satisfactory answer. I can understand completely if it's not.
No,
But,
thank you so much, Prabhu.
That's what I have to say. Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Jagdishyan Prabhu. Any other
Yep.
question?
No, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay, looks like that's about it for today. Thank you, Prabhu, for your valuable time and valuable instructions. Quick announcements. We are celebrating Gopastami today at our temple. We have a Kirtan program 4 to 8 at our temple. Please join. Gauravani Prabhu will be there with Kirtan, and also he will be giving the class today evening. And the actual day of Gopastami is on Tuesday, November 1st or 2nd. I think November 2nd. Yeah, November 1st, sorry. November 1st, Tuesday is Gopastami. It is also disappearance day of Srinivasa Acharya, other ones. And November 4th is Uttana Ekadasi, where Lord Mahavishnu wakes up. And it is also Shri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj disappearance day. And then November 7th is the last day of Kartik, Damodar month. So Vishnu Panchak starts on November 4th, Friday, and ends on November 7th. Last few days, if you are not able to observe Kartik, at least try to observe last few days of Kartik, November 4th to 7th, very, very auspicious few days. So please join today evening. Govindas, if you would like to place any orders, govindasnj.com. You can place on the website or contact us. Thank you. We'll conclude today's session. Thank you very much. 15 Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktam ki jai.